Okay, hello everyone. I'm Jong Park from first year master student at Technology University. Today I'll be presenting about the sound mass function of the local massive cluster based on dense spectroscopic observations. So stellar mass is the comprehensive history of the galaxy's star formations. Many previous work showed that stellar mass strongly correlates with various galaxy properties such as star formation rate, size, star orbitality, or etc. So stellar mass is considered as a mainly primary driver of the galaxy evolution. So studying stellar mass is the fundamental way to understand the galaxy's past and the physical mechanism that will shape its future. And the stellar mass function is a direct measurement, observational measurement of how galaxies are distributed by the stellar masses. So many galaxy formation models from hydrodynamical simulations or the semi-analytical model are trying to reproduce this stellar mass function because it captures the combined history of star formation and the baryonic feedbacks. So by comparing the predicted stellar mass function with the observed ones, we can immediately see if the model is producing too many or too small amount of galaxies in each given mass, which enables us to constrain the efficiency of the key processes like ASIAA feedback or stellar supernova feedback or the environmental effect. However, despite their importance, there are only few measurements of the cluster stellar mass function been so far. The most complete ones come from ASIAA 209, and Virgo, while the other ones rely on incomplete spectroscopy or mixed with the photometry. So to understand cluster stellar mass function more deeply, we need more expanded data set of robust measurement with this spectroscopy. So today I'm going to introduce you about the stellar mass function from new data set, MAC survey. MAC stands for the Massive Cluster Survey with the hectospec, and it's the homogeneous spectroscopic survey for local massive clusters. So it contains more than 5,000 spectra within Square 100, and we did not perform any spectroscopy for color selections, which enable us to handle the stellar mass function from high-sentence star-forming populations with different colors with the same confidence level. So figure on the left side shows the number of the spectroscopy on the x-axis and the cluster mass on the y-axis. The star symbol here represented the MAC clusters, and you can clearly see that the MAC clusters are both massive and has a lot of spectroscopic coverage. The figure on the right side shows this more clearly. It is the spectroscopic completeness above the RN magnitude for one of our example MAC cluster, ASIAA 2065. And red and green line are come from the completeness from public survey, SDSS, and NESI. And black line shows it how spectroscopic completeness improved by adding the spectroscopy from hectospec. So you can see that MAC survey is how spectroscopy deep and complete than the other survey. So we identify the cluster members in MAC survey using the COS technique. The figure on the left side shows the RB diagram for the ASIAA 2065. So COSIC technique identify the member of the clusters by drawing the escape velocity profile at each radius. And we find nearly 700 members per cluster, for MAC cluster. And the figure on the right side shows it the special spectroscopy completeness for ASIAA 2065. Here, the darker color background indicates that more high completeness. And the orange circle is the R200 of the cluster. And the white circles are the members. And you can see that within R200, we are achieving more than 95% of completeness of spectroscopy for all regions. So these figures show that our MAC survey is a very rich and complete spectroscopy, and our member selection is not biased by the incomplete spectroscopy. So we measure the stellar mass using the SCD fitting with the CDO tool based on the SDSS photometry and the spectroscopy redshift. However, when we try to reconstruct the stellar mass function, we encounter an important challenge. The figure on the right side shows that the relation between the stellar mass and the R-band absolute magnitude of ASIAA 2065 members. And since our spectroscopy is not 100% complete, so there's a spectroscopy completeness limit in the data set, and we indicated with the black dashed line. However, due to the large scatter in this relation, so it is not straightforward to define and convert this limit to the limit in the stellar mass function. So this highlights the need to correct our stellar mass functions. And let me briefly explain how we corrected our stellar mass functions here. Here I bring the MAC cluster sample with the 6 galaxies. So here are black triangles represent the galaxies without spectroscopy, and the 2 galaxies, pink squares, are galaxies with spectroscopy, and the red circles are the members with the spectroscopy. So here, even though we do not have any spectral information for these 2 galaxies, however, we can imagine what would happen if we perform the spectroscopy be on them. Maybe some of them would turn out to be members, and some would turn out to be not members. And then in this way, we try to correct our Stellar function, which is the shape of the predicted Stellar function when we have 100% of fully complete spectroscopy. So then one may ask, like, so among the black triangles, like among the galaxies without spectroscopy, how can we know how many of them are the potential members? So we try to calculate the membership probability using the three parameters, using the Mach members empirically first. We use the three parameters: the projected distance from the cluster center for each galaxy, and the Jumas are color, and the R band absolute magnitude. So we divide all galaxies within three-dimensional parameters and try to calculate the fraction of members among the galaxies with spectroscopy. And the figure on the left side illustrates the example probability on each stellar or each three-dimensional parameters beam. And after calculating this probability, we apply them to the galaxies without spectroscopy to the corresponding parameter space. So here I bring the simple flow chart that summarizes the correction process. After regaining the number of the potential members, let's suppose we have one here. We try to assign the membership among the galaxies without spectroscopy. Here we pre-pick the one first galaxy as a member, and then we can measure their stellar masses, assuming that it has the same relationship with the cluster members. However, since we only know the number of the potential members, we do not know the exact identity of each galaxy. So there could be a randomness when we try to assign the member, because in here, when you try to assign the member, it could be a second or third galaxies when I try to pick the member. So to reduce this stochastic effect, we reiterated this process thousands of times to show the correct stellar mass functions here. So as a result, we construct all of correct stellar mass function for 9 Mach clusters. As the figure on the right side shows is the total Mach of stellar mass function of the total Mach step sample. The black triangle stands for the raw stellar mass function, and red circle are the corrected stellar mass functions. Here we define the incompleteness limit for this stellar mass function, where the amount of correction exceeds the 10% of members, and we indicate it with the gray background here. So as a result, we significantly increased the number of local stellar mass function with this Mach data set. Previously, it was limited to Alpha 9, and Virgo, but now it is extended to the 11 clusters. And this stellar mass function is not only normal stellar mass function, but this is the accurate stellar mass function with this deep spectroscopy, and completely down to the 10 to the power of 9 solar masses. So next, we construct the field stellar mass function to compare this cluster stellar mass function and field stellar mass function. So we constructed the field stellar mass function with the SDSS main galaxy sample, with the same relationship with the Mach stellar mass function, with the same stellar mass measurement. So figure on the right side shows it called the comparison plot of those two stellar mass function, and to compare this, we normalize it to those two stellar mass function with the associated mass within those environment. And you can see that the cluster stellar mass function exceeds field stellar mass function in entire mass ranges, but this excess becomes more significant with the mass range massive than 10 to the power of 11.5 solar masses. So this plot clearly shows that the massive galaxies are more abundant in the cluster environment, especially for the galaxies being more massive than 11.5 solar masses. And lastly, we also constructed the stellar mass function by galaxy populations. Since I mentioned our Mach survey did not perform any color selection when we select the spectroscopic target, so we can handle the stellar mass function, quiescent galaxies and star-forming galaxies with the same confidence level. So we first classify the galaxies populations with the different thousand spectral index, and then this figure shows it the star-forming and quiescent cluster stellar mass function separated by the environment. The most left plot showing the within half R500, the most dense environment, coming to R200 and within R200 environment. And the right side shows it the field stellar mass function separated by galaxy population, the sparse environment. And here you can clearly see two different quenching process, like mass quenching and environment quenching. First, the most massive galaxies are likely to be quiescent. And secondly, as it comes to the more denser environment, the quiescent galaxy becomes more dominant even the lower stellar mass level. So in simple terms, we can say the crossing point between the quiescent and the star-forming stellar mass function going to more lighter mass region right now. So to summarize it, here today I present about the Mach survey, the homogeneous and deep and complete spectroscopic survey, which enables us to have more extensive amount of local stellar mass function sample here. And with this mock data set, we constructed a mock stellar mass function. So this is complete down to the tensor power of 9 stellar masses, showing the lower limit of the stellar mass function. And in this here, you can see the clear signals of excess of galaxy formation in the cluster environment, especially for the mass region less than 10 to the power of 11.5 stellar masses. And by separating the quiescent inside forming population, we see evidence of mass and environmental pinching for this with these stellar mass functions here. So finishing the presentation, I'm looking forward to your interest of this beautiful mock cluster and mock survey. This is the end of my presentation, and thank you for listening to my talk.
We have time for a few questions.
It's just a simple question, but are you able to compare the result with some simulations like Flamingo or something?
So can you ask one because one I didn't hear.
Did you compare your results to some simulations?
Yeah, actually, I tried to compare my stellar mass function for result, but I didn't include it in my figure. Actually, this is I tried to compare our measured stellar mass function with the measured stellar mass function measured from TNG 300 simulations. So here, the red circle shows us our obtained stellar mass function here, and I tried to construct the stellar mass function in TNG 300, sharing the same mass M200 range of mock clusters, and construct it in the similar redshift. There was a 9 cluster samples. So this is the comparison of the direct real world stellar mass function plot. So we can see the similar shape of stellar mass function within the mass range 10 to the 11.5 indexes. But there was a slight deviation when showing handling the BCG environment in the more lighter mass region, but which is below our confidence limits of our stellar mass functions.
Other questions?
Thank you. I was curious, in your sample, is there much halo-to-halo diversity? Did you look at that, and do you have any sense of what properties of the halo correlate best with the mass function, if there's diversity?
I didn't think about the difference between the halo-to-halo diversity with the mock cluster stellar mass functions, but actually one thing I'm thinking is, but when actually there was only one, this is the example plot for showing the all individual mock cluster stellar mass function in here, and I'm thinking that actually I didn't exactly check the halo-to-halo is featured without its mass, but what I'm thinking is the different shape of the stellar mass function individuals mock cluster are coming from the fraction of galaxy population here, but except for that, I didn't think a lot about each real halo's feature. Yes.
Okay, I think we can ask more questions during the break. So let's thank Jungin and all the speakers in this session.